Legend has it that the term cafe racer was created by a trucker describing a group of youths racing from a cafe, a term that was adopted and loved by the rebellious youth. Last week, we were joined once again by Gemma and John, who took us further into the world of motorcycle racing and let us in to what life is like being married as a motorcycle couple. This week, however, we have a bike back from the dead.
These are the Wolf Tales.
After this episode, Red, what do you prefer, the R9T or the Triumph Truxton? Mad. Such biasm.
Just the wrong colour. Did you have a choice of colours, or that was just the one they had and you went for that?
Isn't that ironic how much smack he's been talking today about cafe races? And
It's only because it's parked outside the cafe. Hello, I'm Maynard. I'm 53 years old. I am a memorial mason. That involves cutting inscriptions and pictures into headstones and then going out and placing those headstones on the graves. I'm an artist also in my spare time. I have actually done motorbikes for headstones. I've sandblasted pictures of various motorbikes, whether it's Vespas or GSXR 650s, 750s on a headstone. Allows me to use my artistic abilities in that respect. With my artwork, I've only done one motorbike. I find them very difficult. I can draw animals, I can draw people, but give me a motorbike and I seem to struggle for some reason. It's something I'm playing with and still learning to do, so hopefully I can come up with some artwork soon. I've also in the past done martial arts, trained and taught for about 20 years. I've done karate, jiu-jitsu, Filipino stick and knife fighting, Iaido, which is the art of drawing the sword, boxing, kickboxing, wrestling. They all came into it. Had a lot, strangely, to do with cars. I've built them, painted them, cleaned them and scrapped them. I was brought up with cars basically. My father was into cars, he had his own business cleaning cars. I used to be a car salesman, but now my true love is bikes. When I need to get away from the day-to-day trappings, I either draw or I go for a ride on my bike.
So this week, we are joined by Maynard, who has kindly brought in his stunning BMW R nineT Racer S, a bike that faces close competition from a certain manufacturer. Let's waste no further time and get straight in to the deep dive. Hello and welcome to the deep dive. This week we are joined by Maynard, who has brought in his lovely BMW R nineT Racer S. Maynard, start us off, tell us a bit about the bike.
It's a beautiful bike, it rides really nice. I think a lot of people would be concerned about the riding position in the bike because the seat is so far back. But personally, I find it quite comfortable. It's a bike you get involved with when you're riding.
We have said pretty much from the moment we arrived this morning, Wow, what a beauty. However, my esteemed colleague might have some other views. However, we will get to those, don't worry, calm yourself down. Before we go into great detail, just tell us a bit about why you went with the R9T. Why this bike?
I had a BMW 1200 GSA, lovely bike, couldn't fault it. It did everything for you. You know, the ride adjustment, everything, ABS, all bells and whistles, singing and dancing. However, you would start on your journey, go, do your journey, get to the other end, and it was like, well, okay, it was non-eventful.
You've just taken a ride on the bike.
That's it. Basically. Yeah. You might as well have been in a car. But I'm still a BMW man. I saw this, I took it for a test ride, and I just came back with the biggest grin on my face. You know, you get involved with the bike, you low down, you're not fighting it, you're riding it. You know, and to me, that's what biking's about. You know, I like to enjoy my ride. I like to be part of the bike and feel the road, as it were.
So compared to the GSA, then, do you find this is a much more raw experience for riding? Like you're on the bike, you have to acknowledge that you are riding.
Yes.
You're not just sat on something and it's taking you somewhere.
Most definitely. Yeah. I mean, you're part of the bike. Don't get me wrong. You know, because of the angle that you're at, you're a lot more in contact with the bike. But yes, yeah, basically.
That's it. I just want to say as well, as a cruiser guy who's used to being back here, when I sat on this bike earlier on, thank you very much, it was suddenly, my legs are tucked here, I'm leaning all the way over, and I can already feel, because of my old age, my wrists just protest so much. But saying that, I think once you're out on the bike, because you've got this lovely extra padded bit on the back of the seat here, if you accelerate sharply, let's say,
it pushes you into the seat.
That's it. You get pushed into the seat, and a lot of that weight gets transferred to your core muscles as opposed to your actual wrists and such. So yeah,
I will say, obviously, a lot of people change the handlebars for ones that are slightly higher up.
That's it. Yeah.
Raised. As far as the getting carpal tunnel or that numbness in your fingers, I've found as long as you bring your elbows in, that goes. You don't suffer with that.
Yeah.
The bike is fantastic. If there's any problems, it's me.
It's the rider.
It's the rider.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think it's quite important that we sort of just quickly put out there, there's nothing wrong with BMW GS's, perfect, lovely bikes, but I am interested to know, what was it like initially, those first few rides, going from the BMW GSA that, like you say, does everything for you, to go into something much more involved? And I think that's the key word, isn't it? It's involved.
Absolutely.
You're part of it more. What was those first few rides like?
Absolutely fantastic. As I say, you come back with a grin on your face, and that's what you want when you go out for a ride on the bike.
Absolutely.
Through the country lanes. Again, because of the riding position, you lower down. That whole, you feel like you're on the racetrack. You know, you're leaning it, you're sliding a bit on the saddle. I'm not a knee down guy. You know, I'm too old for all that. But it does make you want to do that. Whereas the GS, again, a bit like the cruiser, you let the bike do the work, and you just glide along. This, you're part of it.
Definitely. I think it's worth saying, like, with the performance side of things, you're much more involved in it. The bike, weightless almost. We've both sat on it today. It weighs, I compared it to almost like the weight of a 250. However, it's got a nearly 1200cc boxer twin engine in it. The thing's absolutely incredible. How do you feel in terms of the power of this bike? Is it lacking in that department at all, or do you just feel like this is a perfect bike for the road that we have here?
It's got the power when you need it. It's not a sports bike. It's not your top end MV Augustas or Ducatis or whatever. It's not that. It is what it is. It's a cafe racer. It's great on the twisties. It's equally as nice on the straight roads. It's got the power there when you open it up and go for it. But as I say, it's not top end 180 mile an hour job, you know.
It's very much more lower down. You know, I've already spoken to Red, you know, saying it fascinates me, you know, 116 newton meters of torque in something this light. What is that like? First gear, go on. Just describe that if you can.
You just got to hold on. You've got to have your wits about you. All the weight is down low on it. So I think that's what makes it feel so light, because the weight, the centre of gravity is all down there.
The numbers are very impressive. The looks, I mean, I think they speak for themselves. I don't think we can get away from the topic anymore though. Red, honestly, you and me, I wouldn't say we disagree too often. We disagree occasionally. This we disagree on. I'm interested to hear more about what you think regarding the looks.
This is what happens when he puts you on the spot. As a cruiser rider, I've always got a bias towards cruisers. I love them, fine, sure, whatever. And I think that when you have a screen on a cruiser, not like my one, the screen often complements the rider's position, and the whole point of comfort is king. Now with a Cafe Racer, I look at a screen like this and I just think it looks a little bit odd. Now, if I come around the front of the bike for a sec, for me, there's a gap here, and it's always bothered me. It's almost like something's missing. So when you put a screen like this on the front of the bike, I find it hard to say it complements the bike. However, because I know it's a Cafe Racer and it has a certain aesthetic, it does suit the bike. It's just, I still find it a little bit odd.
Do you not think though, going back to like images of bikes, of motorsports from the 1970s and then seeing this, do you not think it's almost that flash from the past, that, do you know what I mean, that it just takes you back almost 40, 50 years?
This is a BMW.
Yes, I agree completely with you, 110%. You said something, Maynard, when we were off, something about, you know, this is a modern bike trying to look old. And again, I don't think we can get away from it for much longer. Its main competitor is the Triumph Thruxton. Red, I know you have some opinions already about that as well.
I will say, I do prefer the Triumph Thruxton's appearance, at least with the front fender, the front screen, because I think it just suits the aesthetic of the bike a little bit more. It's got the British brand, the British heritage. I just think it suits it. But when I see the badge of BMW on the side of this and then the screen, I thought, it's not my thing, but I can appreciate it. I'm not trying to put your bike.
He is.
They are almost identical.
Yeah.
I have a friend who has a Triumph Thruxton, and they are, we park them side by side, and barring the elephant in the room, they are almost identical. Yeah, certainly the front fairing, the screen. I think, you know, if it's practicality you're talking about, I do believe you can get a double bubble screen.
Yeah.
To push the wind up and over. I mean, someone, no offence, your size, you better tuck down behind that.
In with the short jump.
Highlights it again. Get in there. I love it when people do that.
But you can tuck down behind that.
Yeah.
You know?
If he can reach, of course, the handles.
I am indeed a small boy. I will fit.
This is again, I'm so sorry to have to do this to you, but I have to disagree, because I get that there are modifications available. I don't think a double bubble screen would look appropriate on this.
No, I don't like it.
Exactly. The whole idea of Cafe Racers is to be light and slick. You know what I mean? This looks very defined. Everything is built for one purpose, and I love it. I'm with you. The Thruxton is a good looking bike. But as good looking as this, bearing in mind, I love Triumph. Triumph.
Never have guessed.
But never would have guessed that. But I think this looks outstanding. It really does. I know, Red, we're not old enough necessarily to remember that era, but
maybe not you.
but it does. It froze back to that, and yeah. But it's an interesting take. Do you get many people when you're out and about at bike stops and stuff like that say, you know, oh, it's nice, why didn't you buy the Triumph Thruxton, or is it much of a case of they do think this is a worthy competitor?
Oh, I haven't had personally anybody say, oh, why didn't you buy the Triumph?
So why didn't you buy the Triumph?
It's a much better looking bike. A friend has the Triumph Thruxton. When we park them together, I have to admit, hands up, people do tend to go towards the Triumph a little bit more. but they are so similar and they do complement each other really well. I think you should get rid of the ST and get a Thruxton, to be honest.
Wow, you heard it here first. Try, sort me out.
But I haven't had anybody come up and say, why haven't you brought this? I do get a lot of people giving it the look over the shoulder, the second glance. They watch you go past as you're going through town or whatever. Yes, it tends to be the older generation, but I think they recognise it is for what it is as a cafe racer.
It meets that certain aesthetic.
Yes.
And I think as well, so, unlike the Triumph, the BMW here does have that Boxster engine, the giant unit which sticks out the sides.
Keeps your shins warm.
Of course, yeah. And again, I've test rode 1 or 2 BMWs with the same sort of setup, and I've never quite got the idea. However, I will say, what BMW have been able to do with this cafe racer, just the aesthetic of having that engine block to work with as well, I think they have done a wonderful job with it. And just one of the little details, I really do like this little air intake on the side.
Yes.
It's just there, and I love it because it's almost just like hidden.
The joys of this bike are there are so many extras that you can get for it.
Yeah.
One being the carbon fibre intakes, the meshes on the front, and you can just personalise these bikes to the nth degree just to make it your own. You get belly pans, the panels that fit inside, different exhausts. You get under seat exhausts. You can get little cut-off pipes. There are just so many bits. Tail tires.
It's basically how far do you want to go?
How much money you've got.
Yeah.
It will always come down to personal preference and stuff like that. I do, we've spoken a little bit about how only certain things seem to suit a cafe racer.
Yes.
It's such a specific bike category. I do have to ask, seeing as though we are on that topic, before buying this, did you try out any other cafe racers, or did you potentially get swayed towards any other?
Not at all. I looked at Thruxton, but because my friend had one, I didn't necessarily want to, get one as well.
Join the club.
Yeah. Other bikes, I'd looked at the CCM Spitfire. Bit small for me. Again, as I say, I'm a big man, and I think it's a 600cc engine, and it's quite a small bike as well. This is deceptive. When you look at it, it looks small, but it's also quite long in itself. So your knees aren't really bunched up when you're riding it. As you said, if you open it up, you can sit back into that saddle. Literally, I went to the BMW dealers to look at the R nineT Pure. I sat on that. I wasn't overly enamoured with it. It didn't jump out and say buy me. He then tried me on the R nineT Urban GS. That was quite a nice bike. I sat on it, it felt right, and then I thought, why would I buy this when I've got a GSA sitting there? No disrespect to the R nineT Urban GS. And then he pointed to that and said, well, we've got this. I took it for a test ride. I came back, and as I say, grin on my face. He just said it all, and I said, yes, I'll have it.
Impossible not to buy.
Yeah.
I know it might be a sensitive subject, but I think it is worth talking about that the bike has only recently sort of come back to this sort of standard of beauty. Do you mind telling us a little bit about what's happened in your ownership?
Yeah, I've had the bike. When did I get it? Well, I'd basically had the bike 3 months. Coming back from out on a ride, car in front of me put his indicator on to turn left and stopped. Fortunately, I wasn't going that fast and I was far enough back. I went around him. What I didn't realise was he'd flashed the oncoming car to turn in front. I caught the car, I managed to keep the bike upright, but I caught the offside header on her bumper, and it obviously tweaked the head itself. The bike went away, insurance, repair. They had it for 7 months. The added bonus of that is I was insured with MCE.
No way. Join the club.
Yeah. So, basically there was a lot of to-in and fro-in. I think it came down to the point where after 7 months I threatened them with legal action, and within a week it was repaired, and I think it was another week or a week and a half. Oh, we've got to take it out and test ride it, make sure it's all okay, and then it was delivered back. And that was, I think, 3 weeks ago.
At least you have it back now, and it's all been replaced with OEM parts,
parts,
or
all
BMW.
as far, well, I hope so. But
what have you had to have done?
so
replaced?
they replaced the head, the piston, the rocker cover, I presume it's called. They replaced the rear wheel for some reason. They said it had a flat spot. I don't know, because that never came in contact with the other car. But hey, I'm not going to knock it.
No.
£600 worth of wheel and tyre. They also replaced the front tyre. Again, I'm not going to knock that. That's, it was a bonus. And obviously, where they've had to take the exhaust off and everything, they've replaced all the gaskets and seals and everything else. And put new oil in it because it dumped most of that on the floor. But yes, I've, as I say, had it back about 3 weeks now. Riding a treat, loving every minute of it. I ride it to work. I take it out in the cold, the wet.
You just enjoy it, basically.
That's what
Love
bikes
it
are
for what
for,
it
aren't
is.
they?
Yeah,
Really.
exactly.
It's nice to see such a good-looking bike still get used as a bike. Do you know what I mean?
bike.
Because I've said it so many times since we've been here today. If I ridiculous amounts of money, I could just own one of these and have it on show because it's that good looking. But the fact that you're actually using it, that is actually very admirable.
I can't afford not to be
Can't
honest.
afford-
If the truth be known,
it's been gone for 7 months. Now we've actually got to start using it.
Yeah.
This is
I
brilliant.
mean, that's the one saving grace is when I had the accident and it went away for repair. That's when we had all the bad weather.
Yeah,
We're now just
planned
coming
it.
back into the good weather, and I've got the bike back.
And here
so
it is.
yes,
Exactly.
I shall enjoy it.
I think we have to definitely conclude on a note of, we've mentioned the Triumph Thruxton, we've said about, the pros and cons, etc. The comparison between two bikes. But if someone is looking at a cafe racer, what would be your words to almost, if you were a spokesperson for this bike, what would be your words to really sort of get people to at least consider the BMW R nineT racer?
As a salesman or an ex-salesman, car salesman, the best thing you could do is get someone out on it. It will sell itself. It is a fantastic bike. It's got that grunt. It's got the feel of a good bike. You look at it and we hear it all the time. We've said it here today about the position of the seat being so far back, the handlebars being lower down. But take it for a ride, and you'll be converted.
Don't believe everything you read in reviews and stuff like that.
But a review is great, but it's a personal review. It's what that person thinks. You might ride this and go, it's okay, but it's not for me. I'd rather have the Thruxton. You might get on it and go, actually, I really like this.
If you can sway him, then you've achieved something great.
I like the way you said he would take the Thruxton because now he missed the Triumph.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Mr. Triumph, of course I would. Yes. No, I do also think with the reviews, they're not a living with review. They're just a very much, I've had this bike for a few hours. This is what I think of it. Whereas, you've lived with this. I know, as we've mentioned, it's been off the road for a little bit, but you sound like you're very much connected with this bike. You're happy about the change between the GSA to this.
I mean, I've had various bikes. I had a Harley Davidson V-Rod, I've had a GSX 1400, so I've had muscle bikes, I've had cruisers, I've had the adventure bikes, I had the old 1150 like Ewan McGregor had to go around the world. That was silver as well. And now I've got this, I'm happy to try different things. It's on PCP, so if I didn't like it after 3 years, I can hand it back and try something else. I can try a Sprint, I can try another cruiser or whatever. But yes, I'm over the moon with it. It puts a smile on my face, as I say, every time I ride it.
And I think that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
That's what biking's about to me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for telling us so much about the bike, and I look forward to hearing more about yourself shortly.
Yeah. My motorcycle journey started when I was 18. Very boring, really. Didn't get a bike because all my friends had bikes. It come down to cost, really. That's all I could afford for transport to get to work and back. I was 18 at the time, and my first bike was a little X150 Suzuki. I think it's the joy being out on the open roads is what kept me with bikes. I moved on from Suzuki to a TZR 125. From that, I went up to the FZ 750, GSX 1400, Harley Davidson V-Rod, and then the last three bikes have all been BMWs, the 1150 GS, 1200 GSA, and of course now the R nineT BMW. I just enjoy the open road and the thrill of riding a bike. When you drive a car, you're in your metal box, you're warm, you've got your favourite tunes on, you're detached from the car, you're not part of it. Riding a bike is different. You've got to ride a bike to understand it. You feel the speed that you go, the bends, you're part of the bike, so you're leaning with the bike. I think that's what attracts most people to riding a bike. 90% of us look out for each other. I know certainly I was out in my car the other day and I saw a biker stopped on the side of the road. I pulled up and said, are you okay? Have you broken down? And he was just waiting for someone. But you know, I've had it myself. When I broke down, when I had my accident, I was on the side of the road for, I think it was 5-6 hours in the blazing sunshine, and I had people stopping and giving me water, you know, bikers that were in Bedford and I was, you know, miles away, had ridden out with bottles of water for me because I was sitting with my bike. Yeah, so it's a brotherhood, I think. You look out for each other. We all give the nod or the wave or, you know, whatever your little signal is. If someone's starting riding bikes, don't hold back, take your test. If you can afford to do the direct access, do the direct access where you're straight out. Failing that, get your experience on a little 50 or 125s and get out and enjoy it. Enjoy the roads, the weather, the camaraderie. You wouldn't look back. Having an accident, I've had a few, some major, some minor. This one shook me a little bit. Getting back on the bike wasn't a problem. Even after 7 months off of the bike, I got the bike back and I was out on it on the same day. Put my lid on and off I went. And I think it's that old adage of getting back on the horse. You know, you've got to get back out there. You take it easy. It makes you, I think, a little bit more aware of what's going on, your surroundings. I've always said that riding a bike, for me, you're much more aware of your surroundings than if you're in your car. You get very complacent if you're in a car because you're in your metal box. It keeps you safe. On a bike, you feel more vulnerable, so your eyes are always looking down the road, in your mirrors. Yeah, I think it makes you safer on the roads. I went on a trip around Europe. We went across the mountains in Switzerland, Swiss Alps. I was on my old BMW 1150 GS. Halfway through that, I realised my rear brakes weren't working. The pads had worn out, basically. I hadn't done a proper service before I went out. So going around the hairpin bends on a downward slope, having to use the front brake. But it did teach me how to ride the bike a little bit differently, using the gears to slow down rather than trying to use the brakes. As I say, I'm not a sports bike rider. I don't go do track days or anything like that. So for me, it was an experience and it's one I look forward to repeating. Well, not necessarily riding without a back brake, but doing the Swiss Alps. I think if you have the opportunity to do it, you should do it. We went through France, down to the Swiss Alps, through the Alps, down into Italy, then back up through the French Alps and then back out through France. We were doing 8 hours in the saddle a day. We did it all in 5 days. That's a bit rushed. We're planning to do it again this September. I think it's going to be over 7 to 10 days this time, so we're going to take our time, do a little bit more sightseeing. If you get the chance to do it, take that opportunity. It's an experience that you will thoroughly enjoy. Certainly if you get to ride in a pack, everybody's got your back, you've got everybody else's back. They're a little bit stricter in France. You can't, as far as I'm aware now, you can't ride with earphones in. You can't ride one-handed, so you can't take your hand off and relax it. You've got to have both hands on. Don't let that put you off. It is an experience that you should take up.
Boring fuckers, aren't they? Maynard has said, a really important fact that sometimes we just can't put into words how it feels to be a biker, and instead we would encourage you to get out there and try it for yourself. A special thank you and shout out to Redlocks, who has become the first person to support this channel by buying a part of our merch. If you would like us to continue bringing you these enjoyable episodes, then please consider purchasing a hoodie or a t-shirt in the links below. This video has been brought to you by you guys. Thank you so much for those of you who have engaged with the episodes, commented down below, liked and subscribed. If you are new, then please like, comment and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you as a regular viewer to our episodes. We'd also love to have you here as a guest on Wolf Tales, sharing your crazy biking experiences and bringing in your pride and joy. I am the Rhythmic Biker, and these are the Wolf Tales.
These are the Wolf Tales.